Hello and welcome to Champion Reviews. I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And Jet. We just got finished with the Doctor Strange episode, which was a rather strange episode.
Weird.
Yeah. The problem I have with this episode is it feels less like a Spider-Man episode and more like a Doctor Strange episode, with Spider-Man in a cameo role. The other thing is, Peter does not assume an active role in the story and is more a passenger and passive player in what is Doctor Strange's quest to stop Mordo and Dormammu. So the main character is Strange, and we learn that years ago he suffered an accident, lost the usage of his hands, and, tried to save the Ancient One for Mordo. Ancient One blessed him for helping try to warn him, even though he didn't really succeed. And, Ancient One then epic fails and lets Mordo go. But then Mordo ends up having rebuilt his life as a cult leader, where he hypnotizes lost souls who are desperate for reunification with loved ones. And that said, he does use actual cult tactics to keep them in line. He only hypnotizes them after dark when he wants them to do petty crime, like petty theft of museum artifacts. So his main artifact is a wand. Now, Strange sets out to stop him. Spider-Man ends up going along, not listening to the Doctor's warnings. And as a secondary character here, you can't expect much more from a secondary character. I mean, I thought this was the Spider-Man animated series, not Doctor Strange animated series. Whatever. What's the difference in this episode? Yeah, I'm bitter. Now, MJ decides under her own volition to sell Peter out to the cult leader, not knowing whether or not he'll kill Peter, because she may love the guy, but she loves Daddy's sweet, sweet love even more. Yes, there are those implications in this episode. Between her and Mordo, and between, her and Daddy. She has a strong Electra complex. And boy, is this episode disturbing on so many levels with her.
Yeah.
And it also reduces Peter kind of to the role of simp, which I didn't like. Normally, in a lot of episodes, he points out her BS and says, MJ, come on. And I don't mind one aspect of her in this series, where she does point out his BS. That is something I do think John Semper got right. Married couples should know each other's flaws and mistakes. But here, this episode really gets it wrong. And Strange, of course, rescues Spider-Man as he falls under hypnotic control of Mordo. Releases him from the spell. They set off together to stop Mordo and Dormammu. They outfox and outmaneuver and outclass Dormammu every step of the way, even in his own dimension, which is rather funny. A bit of a non-threat, isn't he? Then you've got Dormammu who seizes a hold of MJ, who, ironically, here Mordo is apparently better at the mind control thing than Dormammu. And Dormammu tells MJ, obey me. But he kind of botches it, because, he's kind of scary and fiery. He's a devil. I don't know what else to say. And she's not suffering from the weaknesses of the post-99 MJ, who's like, the devil? I'm spreading him open for you. I'm ready, man. Sorry, but I'll actually rate this MJ even higher than the post-97/99 MJ.
Yeah.
That one, but then again, that woman has a terrible husband. They were Peter Parker in the multiverse.
They also had a terrible writer and editorial.
Yeah, Straczynski and Quesada were both the worst. Anyways, now MJ resists him and is sent back into the mortal realm because, he can't maintain control. he has no ability to keep her there somehow. And I suspect it has to do with if she had given in, he'd be able to like block her off from leaving. But as she rejected him and his evil, it's a bit of a almost Dante's journey into hell, part of Divine Comedy, I think. And that's where it's actually really interesting. That part of this episode is really interesting. That element with MJ. Mm-hmm. I do find MJ interesting in that regard. So I would argue, first half, this episode does not do a good job with MJ or Peter. Second half of this episode, actually, it's very interesting. But at the same time, this is not a great episode or even a good one because, I wish there was more time focused on Peter and MJ as characters rather than Stephen Strange.
I like Stephen Strange in this episode.
I don't mind him. Now, I'm a Doctor Strange hater. I hate the character. But
this is a story arc that should have been over 2 episodes.
Yeah, it was rushed.
There was a lot more they could cover with 2 episodes.
Now, the positive is that Mordo becomes mostly a Spider-Man rogue in this series. And we get him in some great episodes later on.
Yeah.
But this is not a good intro for him or for this season. This was a very weak start. Now this season does get good, I think.
Yeah.
From what I remember. But this episode was not a strong start. So yeah, sorry for the mixed reaction MJ. Now, thankfully, my opinion, from what I know of the series, this is the last weak episode for MJ for the most part. She only gets better because I think it took them like 2 seasons to figure out what should we do with her. And then they got around to knowing how to write her. Mm-hmm. And they do a bang-up job later.
Yeah.
This is not my favorite depiction of MJ, but it's not the worst out there. And it's actually better than most animated series and most post-97 stories of MJ. And because it goes classic MJ from 62 to 97, that's the best MJ.
Oh, of course.
Then maybe Mary Jane Loves Spider-Man. That MJ I've got more respect for than most MJs out there, but it's way better than any of the Gwens. And
yes.
MJ, and I don't think and the odd pre-97 What If Spider-Man stories with MJ are all better than what came out later on because they're derived from the classic MJ. Mm-hmm. But that said, now we spent a lot of time on MJ because, this episode spends a bit more time on her than Peter. And I don't mind her struggling with her dad, who was a deadbeat. That element was actually interesting, and they sidestepped the whole alcoholic wife and child beater. And Anna makes a reappearance.
I was just going to mention that
bastardization of a beautiful character. Comic book Anna, just to remind everyone, is a character who was basically another mom to Peter, helped cement his values in him, and was the disciplinarian in the family, always disciplining Peter because he did need discipline, where Ben and May were too soft and gentle to do it. And Anna, though, still gave him candies as a kid because she loved Peter. And it was her idea and scheme to set up MJ and Peter on a blind date because she knew MJ was crushing on Peter but was too shy to approach him herself. And decided, you know what, when she saw that Gwen, a drug-dealing, bipolar lunatic, was going after her nephew, her surrogate son, Peter, Anna was not going to tolerate that. And so she set up her adoptive daughter with her surrogate son, and history was made.
And found every excuse just to make sure that Peter and MJ are in the same room. I can't help...
Not that it was hard, considering the two loved each other.
Yeah.
At first sight, they saw of each other.
Because I remember the one issue where, here it is, MJ and Peter were supposed to help move stuff around in, I think, Anna's apartment, and
Anna's like, oh, I gotta get going.
MJ just turns on the jukebox, and she starts dancing as Peter arrives and starts joining in.
Yeah, I also remember a few stories where Anna's like, all right, I need you to come over and do this for me, Peter. Okay, Anna. Because, it's his other mom, so he's like, I'll agree to anything. Almost. Maybe with the odd grumble, because you always grumble about helping your mom, but you deep down want to help her. But then arrives, and you have Anna, and suddenly my back gave out, or it's like, I gotta get going. I gotta go help May. She just called. And she races off. Then when you next see May and her, they're playing canasta or cards, and you find out, no, there was no distress call. It was just Anna decided, I'm going to set them up to play house because they're my babies. And I want them happy and in love with each other. And Anna... Now, the thing is, they took Anna and they gave her Gail Watson's personality. And Gail is the most horrible woman imaginable who verbally and physically abused MJ. Like, their dad abused Gail and MJ, but then Gail decided to throw MJ always in the line of fire between her and Daddy, and then abused MJ and exposed her to boyfriends and husbands who might want to sexually abuse MJ, and that's why Anna ended up with custody of MJ. And Gail was just the most horrible person, also to Peter. She hated Peter at one point.
And there's something that I also noted, that Gail, if I recall correctly, was a little bitter with MJ, because her two sons often preferred MJ over herself.
Because when you're a monster, you are jealous of the beauty. Sorry. It's the case of Gail was inwardly a monster and resented MJ's inner and outer beauty. Mm-hmm. It's a Cinderella story. But the thing with it, except the wicked stepmother is really a wicked biological full sister.
Yeah.
And, like the comic book version is better, but I understand why they didn't go with any of the... John Semper made the right choice to go for Deadbeat Daddy instead. It was probably for the best.
Yeah, and
so
this episode is pretty much has loads of mishandling of characters.
But the ending was pretty good with MJ.
Mm-hmm.
It was not good with the battle between Strange and Mordo. That was boring.
Mm-hmm. I like Strange and Mordo's voice acting.
Oh yeah, they're solid. I just found it boring.
Yeah.
I didn't sign into a Spider-Man show to watch Strange. I signed in to watch Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe MJ. So how would you rate this episode?
If I'm weighing a lot, I suppose 1.5.
I'm going to rate this a 3/4 star. I really don't see much good in this episode.
It's mainly the ending and Strange and Mordo that save it for me.
They're what bring it down for me. Because it was too focused on them. I wanted Spider-Man to be the focus. And he was too much of a passive passenger in what was his story. The story was building up so that, him and MJ. But instead it turned into Strange's Mystic Quest. What? How do we go from Spider-Man's story to Strange's movie? That's what I found.
Okay.
Now that said, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. And if you didn't, like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'm kidding. Either way, it helps the channel and the algorithm. And if you liked this episode of Strange and whatnot, no problem. Like I said, there are things I liked and I disliked about MJ in this episode. Because, when she sells out Peter, it's like, jerk. Because that's not classic MJ. But on the other hand, at the end of the episode, her resisting the temptation, that's classic MJ. I don't mind MJ getting temptations and failing in life and succeeding later. Because that's what happened in the with the classic MJ. She failed a few times in auditions and whatnot, but she became a big movie star and supermodel because, she was a runaway... she herself is a very successful, passionate person. And a great person. So anyways, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment again. And stay tuned. We've got more Spider-Man stuff coming. And less Doctor Strange stuff.
Yes.